Hey y'all, I'm James Wright. Welcome to my shop, and today we're finally going to show what does a ripping plane do. Most planes have an iron that goes across the sole that actually shaves off a piece of wood, but this one has this wheel that goes in line with the blade. So what exactly does this do? To be fair, it's not actually a plane. It's kind of like a saw, but it's more like a marking gauge, but it's really not a plane. That wheel basically fulfills the same job as the slitting cutter on a 45 or 55. The big difference is the slitting cutter is basically just a knife. It cuts the wood, whereas this is a wheel that kind of slides into the wood. You know what? Let me demonstrate. If I'm working with thin material, say 1/4 inch or so, or the bottom of a drawer, or small pieces for a box, this thin stuff can often be difficult to cut if you need to rip it. I could cut it on the saw bench, but a lot of times with thin stock, that just leads to it splitting and breaking on you. If I need to cut across the grain, that's actually relatively easy to do with bench hooks. But the problem is ripping it. And that's where this kind of is interesting. With the slitting cutter, it's basically a knife with a fence. I can put it on here like a plane, and I can start it by pushing it into the wood a little bit, and then we'll slide it along. And in this poplar, it cuts relatively deeply. Then I'll grab the board, flip it over, repeat the same thing on the other side, remembering to apply decent pressure down into the wood, let it slide along, and then this piece of wood just snaps right off. And you're left with a surprisingly nice edge. One quick pass with the plane or even a little bit of sandpaper or a file and you've got a good clean edge on there. The problem is with a slitting cutter, if the grain happens to run out the side of the board, this tends to just follow the grain right along. It's kind of the same as using a marking knife and a straight edge. If the grain is running around, sometimes if you're not careful, if you're putting too much pressure in, it'll wander around. And the big benefit of the slitting knife is it'll do the work in 1 or 2 passes, and you don't have to mess around with it too much. But if the grain wanders and your line wanders, then this is a pain. A guy by the name of Kinnings, though, he said, wait a second, what if I were to take all those slitting knives and put them into a wheel, so rather than following the grain, they just march across the board? So he filed a patent and started selling these. The earlier model with the patent actually has the wheel underneath the tote so you can put more pressure onto it, but having it in the center makes it a little bit simpler. So you can just dial in this wheel to about the depth you want to cut, and just like a plane, set it on here, and remember to put some weight down into it as you go. And you've got this little dotted dashed line. It's surprisingly easy and rolls very, very nicely. And because those teeth point in, they actually go pretty deep all the way along there. So all I have to do is do one more pass, make all those dotted lines turn into no more of a dot, but now just a line. Then we can flip it over and run it from the other side. And then for the moment of truth, it just snaps. And even in this one, with that grain that's running out, it's not too shabby. It's about the surface you'd expect to get from a medium ripping saw. A couple passes with the plane and she's good as new. You can see how the wheel just sticks in a little ways. And during normal use, it goes really quickly. I bought this thing at an auction having no idea what it was. I think I paid $5 for it because no one else really had an idea or wanted it. After making a fence, now I have a functioning tool. Now, is this something I'm going to be using all the time? No, I could do the same thing with a slitting cutter. You just have to be a little more careful. But really, after playing with this, I really enjoy this. This is kind of fun. It actually works really well. It cuts smoothly and cleanly, and it rolls easily. It sets up very easily. You just adjust the fence to where you want it. You set the blade a little bit deeper, and you roll. And it works really well. I've been playing with it mostly with poplar, as that's actually a really common drawer bottom material. But I did play with it with some hard maple as well, and it did relatively well. And it didn't sink in quite as deep, but it honestly did the trick. With something about 1/4 inch thick, you cut it from both sides, you snap it, and there you go. You got a board ripped very easily and far more enjoyable than doing it with a saw at the saw bench. I really expected this to be a gimmick, and quite often when you get a weird tool that's designed for one odd use, it's most often a gimmick. Even with the old tools, there were a lot of gimmicky things that were made and they didn't make that many of them. And because there aren't that many of these available, I thought, yeah, that's really probably going to be a gimmick. But really, I found this to be fun. It was very surprising to me. It's really made me want to make a bunch of small, thin material boxes because I can rip them with this surprisingly easily. So maybe I'll do some more boxes in the future, or drawer bottoms, or something else like that. And I'd be interested to hear from you guys. What do you think I should make with this? Is it something you've tried in the past? I was actually kind of surprised. So yeah, throw your comments down below. And thank you. That really helps out the channel. Anytime you like, comment, share, subscribe, or have some interesting idea, I do read through all those and answer as many of the questions as I can get to. So thank you for that. It helps us get in front of more people. Algorithm and all, you know how that works. But honestly, if you really like this channel, would like to help us out, we have a bunch of names over here. Those are some of the patrons on Patreon. You guys are the ones who sponsor this channel. I'm not sponsored by some company selling doohickeys. I get to say what I want to say about tools that interest me. And I can only do that because of sponsors on Patreon or on the memberships, or people who click the thank you button down below. Thank you. You guys make Wood by Wright what it is. And without you, we wouldn't be here. So if you want to find out more about that, you know what to do. Links, comments, thank you. I think I'll do it for now. And until next time, have a wonderful day. This thing produces basically a Morse code with a stutter. Rollin', rollin', rollin'.